G'day everybody, this is another Fightspanner car painting video. So my daughter has a Nissan Teeter and it was this colour, and she asked me whether she thought we could do it in a Daredevil design. So I got out some Daredevil designs and had a look at different things. I don't know a heap about Daredevil, but I found some pictures that I thought would go on bonnet, and we ended up with this one and decided that this was the nicest. So I did some designs on how that would look, and she suggested that she wanted the Manhattan skyline because that's where Matt Murdock operates around. So we decided we'd put the Manhattan skyline around the bottom of the car, and so it would be a two-tone with red on the top and the Manhattan skyline on the bottom. So off we went with the prep. So we washed her car first, and then we did the Spidey car while we were at it because it needed a clean. And we gave them a really good thorough wash, and then set about sanding back the paint job on her car. She needed some instruction on not taking off too many of the edges. If you're ever painting on a car on edges or doing even door jambs or things, it's very easy to sand through right on the corner. So there was a little bit of instruction there about don't do that. This was her first time, well, the first time using this sander, and she had a lot of fun. Took her a while to get it all sanded, but after we sanded it, we re-washed it again and made sure we got rid of all of that dust, and then spent some time taping up all of the windows and the bits that were not going to be painted at all that we wanted to preserve. We had some designs printed at Officeworks for both the Manhattan skyline that she found and the Daredevil design that we had picked out to be the thing. I taped up the areas that were going to be green and the pinky red energy thing that shows his sensory thing around his head, and then put the design back over the top of it, marked off where the bits are that needed to be masked off, and taped it up so that, and cut it up and then removed the mask. So we ended up with that for the green, and then that for the green with the red around the top. I did it in two goes because the red comes off first. That was the spray suit. That's a temporary spray suit, so a reusable one, but supposed to be disposable, and it's now painted 3 cars. So that's just the woohoo! Look at the reusable, the single-use spray suit that has more than had single use. Sprayed the red, mixed up too much red. This is a 2-pack red that I got from Crowies Paints in Coffs Harbour. Thank you, Crowies, once again. And it's signal red. It's an Australian standard colour that works very well with Daredevil. I mixed up too much of it in the first lot, so the car actually had 5 coats of red before I ran out of paint. So really good coverage on the red. I left it with time to tack off in between coats, and that's what we ended up with. Knowing that the bottom was going to be black, I only went down as far as we knew the skyline was coming up, which we had already predetermined. So we cut out the AO size Manhattan skylines that we'd had printed, and stuck them together to go the length of the door, placing the Empire State Building in the middle of the door on both sides. So one side is the way that the design was when we found it, and the other side is mirrored. And towards the front there, just around as it bends around the front, I ended up with some spare car, so I fudged it. So if you are watching this and you know your New York City skyline, I'm sorry that those buildings don't exist. It's just urban renewal. Just wait a couple of years. It might be, you never know. So the taping up of the New York skyline for both sides, front and back of the car, took over 6 hours. We had some music playing that goes for 6 hours, and we heard it start twice. So this was one side of the car that my daughter did before she went off to work, and then I finished off the back, and then my wife helped me with the other side and sat and did something that was she felt was way beyond her skill set, but did a good job of it anyway. After we'd got it all taped off, we then had to mask the red that we don't want black, and so we masked that off, and then it was just time to paint the black, which I did. I made sure I didn't mix up too much of the black because I only had half a car to paint, and I still got 3 coats on there. There was some repairs that we did to doors, sanded some dings, pulled some dings out and all of that before we started, so I made sure I gave it some pretty good coverage for that, and it turned out really well. I really like using this paint. The next day we peeled off all the mask to reveal the skyline, and there you have it. That's what it looks like. So that's the passenger side, and that's the front of the car. There was a little bit of tape removed some of the paint at the front, so it either wasn't sanded well enough or it wasn't. But there was some gunk that didn't wash off. Anyway, these are the badges that we've made for the car to take over from the Nissan badges that were on it. So you've got Lady Justice and Daredevil and one Spider-Man. Then I had thought to tape up and spray the pink, but the amount of covering up of the red and the black to ensure that the car was not going to get any pinky red in the wrong space, I thought was too massive. So instead I decided, because I wanted it fades from a lighter white out to a rosy, dusky, salmony sort of pink out on the edges, and I wanted to try and get that. Thought about airbrushing, but the same thing. Once you start spraying, the masking is essential. So I decided to sponge it, and I didn't allow for just how flicky the sponge was and had to mask up even further out, which you saw just there. So I did white, an off-white sort of colour, and then I just added red to it and then kept dabbing until I got to the edges. Because I had the straight red, I then also went and painted the Daredevil logo that I have done in Blender. So I got the comic thing and pulled this out and made a badge to go on the side. The spare ones my daughter is going to make into a keyring for herself, and I managed to have one for myself, but it's always good to do multiple in case one doesn't work or something goes wrong. There's things that happen. So I just used paint. Then I also used the paint to paint the Daredevil, the raised bit of him from a design that we also found that was done. And I did two sizes, thinking that the smaller size when I was printing it would be something you could stick on the side, but it's quite prominent the way that it's raised up. So that's ended up being just spare, and I'm not sure what they'll end up being. After that, the next day, it was mask it all up again, which I didn't bother to do on video because it's the same as what we've done previously. But here's some stills showing you that I masked up also to dab, and I had found that there was some runs with the white because I did it to the consistency that you would do if you were spraying it, and I thinned it, and I thought that the thinning was overly done. So with this one, I mixed it up but thinned it only a couple of drops out of an eyedropper. It's worth. It was only in that little cup that you see in my hand. And be careful with those. It's a disaster when we get to the black that I'll show you. But I did it so that it didn't run as much, and the green was a lot more workable. It didn't run at all. It stayed where it was going. So it looks like a bit of a dog's breakfast there, but when all the masking came off, I was really happy with the transition across, and when Daredevil got painted into it and all of that, it looks pretty good for the way that the picture that we've got. I think it is a front cover from a comic, but I forgot. It was a little while ago. When I picked it, my daughter wasn't sure if she was going to do it or not. We had to get prices for paint and things, so it was a couple of months between when we thought about it and when it happened. After that was dry, I then got some tape and cut it into really fine strips and masked off where his nunchuck rope goes. This guy has got so many strings. Very cool, but it meant for quite a bit of trying to figure out where to go. I then got a texter and roughly dotted where some of the major lines are to be able to keep track of where I was up to. Then it was make up a darker salmony pink, still using the signal red and just white, and make some fleshy tones and flesh in his facial features, these fingers where the fingers were, and the pink, and a little bit on some of the ribbon bits that have highlights. I used this pink for the highlighting of the red on his body and the places where in the comic it's on I think it's the comic cover, that it's very, very highlight. And there's good highlights there, and also used it to give myself a bit of an idea where the where the ropes were going. Just some little bit of a guide. So that's what it looks like there. The next day I also made up a lighter pink, and it was the next time I was at the car, it was only a couple of hours later, I made up a lighter pink and then did the light bits on his face. Doing the black, you'll see in a second, I had a major disaster where I looked away and gesticulated. I think I was talking to somebody, but I might not. And I spilled it out of the cup and it ran down my glove. So I thought not to worry. But when I wiped off the black, I also took off the skin features. And I had to redo, thankfully, neither of them had gone completely off. And I was able to redo the chin and the highlights around the mouth. I actually think I did a better job the second time than the first time, and that might be the case with all things when you have a practice go. So from here on in, it was very, very careful to watch what the cup was doing for all of the colours that I had left to do, and I didn't have another spill like that. I'm left-handed, as you can tell, so I have to work from right to left, not left to right, and it's usually easier to go from bottom to top. But I wanted to really get the strings and the proportions in and the face done and all of that sort of thing. So I worked top to bottom, but I had to be very careful about which direction I did things so that I didn't end up putting an elbow on places where I had already painted. This is just finishing off the bit behind Daredevil. I started to think that the coverage was really lousy until I realised that the 2-pack paint was lifting and blending in with the gold underneath. So when I'd figured that out, I stopped, finished it off, but stopped and didn't keep working it and let it dry, and went back and did a second coat. And this is the photo of the second coat. So he was done. Then I came back and mixed up some more black, and off I went again to start doing the next little bit of inking in the black colours and bringing Daredevil to life with every bit that got done. This was really cool. You could see him, when I took this masking off and it was only green and pink, you could actually see his outline, and you thought, oh, that's where he's going to go. And every single line that you put on after that in the black, he starts to emerge out of the nothing. I found that I'd done a highlight where there shouldn't be a highlight, and it's on one of the ribbons there that you can see. It goes across the ribbon, so I had to come back later with some red and do that and touch up. But there was a little bit of touch up the top there near the pink from where it splashed a bit, and I bled a little bit. So things you do. There was a couple of touch-ups, and I still had to do the green. So this was after the second go with the black. My black, because it's a 2-pack and it has a hardener there, it's only a pot working life, and so in each case I let it go a little bit and then did as much as I could do. But when it started to get draggy, I stopped and went away and came back a few hours later so that I could lean on it a little bit. I also found working on the car that I wanted the fabric underneath me so I didn't accidentally leave grease on the car and cause an issue for the paint job, but it's very difficult on a small bonnet, and the rags kept slipping off when I stood up, so I ended up masking taping them to my elbows so that they stayed with me. Trying to do all of these, keep track of what is ribbon from his arms, what is nunchuck cable, what goes underneath, what goes over the top, was very hard. And you will have seen in amongst that there was a couple of times that I just got thinners on a rag and wiped it back till I worked out what was on top and what was on bottom. And then here you go, another mixed up black, another few hours later, and off we go. I think the time I've managed to, with the video recorder that I have, I get 4 hours and 8 minutes, and I had 3 whole videos for this process of painting, from the first one that's sanding through to the final one when it drives off out the shed. So it's all up, it was probably around about 12 hours worth of work, but it took place over 5 days. So I had to do it. I was finished holidays and I had to do it in between work. So this is just very much referencing the reference. As you can see, throughout the video, I'd put tape to give myself an idea. When there's big areas of red, I put tape to just give myself an idea of where it was going to come to when I got to it, and then peeled it away in order to actually do the painting without touching the tape. I had allowed a little bit extra between the tape and where it was supposed to go, but as I started to get close and wanting to do detail, I didn't want there to be confusion with the tape, so I pulled it off in places as I went. And then it was just there you go. That is all of the black done, and there is Daredevil on the bonnet of the car. So that was quite fun, and I was glad to, one, get a mask off, and two, and go and hop out of my disposable overalls. It is summer here, and we were having a heat wave. We've been having like 34, 35 degree days, 38 degree days, so I was just baking. When I took the gloves off, there would be water running out of my hands and wrists. They were very, very wet from the wearing gloves and in the heat and being hot and sweaty in the spray booth and in the shed and with the spray jacket on. The green I did, and you can see again there was times where I wiped it off and got it right. It was tricky to do the green, and all that's left to do now is to touch up the red. So I touched up where the ribbon was and got rid of that highlight that shouldn't have been there. I did a little bit of touching up here and there around the edges and put some red back in where some of the lighter red had been with the ribbons. Fixed up the bits around the pinky bit. And then after that I mixed up the red that was on the Spider-Man car, which was different. It's a different red, and used it to do his eyes, his Daredevil DDs, and a little bit at the top of the nunchuck. And then it was time to glue on all of the new badges that now tell you it's a Daredevil car. So this is on the front. There were two on each side. So on the sides there was the Daredevil logo and a Lady Justice in a Nike sort of a pose with one arm out one way and one arm out the other. That was a little bit of mucking around. And so that's Lady Justice on the back with Matt Murdock's sort of things. My daughter wanted Spider-Man somewhere because Matt and Spider-Man are friends. So there's Lady Justice and the Daredevil logo underneath. And then that's the bit on the front. So this turned out really, really well. She is thrilled. Her first drive in it, she went to a drive-through, and when she got to the counter, the manager came over, apologised, and asked would she go around once more, because one of their staff, who's a huge comic fan, hadn't seen the car. So she went through the drive-through on her first go twice. A little bit of a mistake in how far the red came down, so we've ended up with a sunrise or sunset. You can tell me, New Yorkers, if you know, because I don't know which way the silhouette was taken from. But this is it running around the side of the car, and it's a really good wrap, and it's ended up really well, and she's chuffed. And like the Spidey car, it's just fun. People come and ask you if they can take photos. If you see this out and about, you are most welcome to take photos. And she is chuffed as to be driving around in her now very spottable Daredevil car. She's had quite a lot of comments, and mostly surprised that she's not a boy driving a Daredevil car. So I don't know what it is. People, do you think it should be a boy? I don't think so. I think girls are allowed to enjoy Daredevil. So there's the Daredevil car and the Spidey car, and the proud owner of the Daredevil car, and the payer of the paint. And here's the Nightwing, Spider-Man and Daredevil all together with their owners doing their poses. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you've really enjoyed this 19 minutes, and there will be a shorter one for those of you that don't want to stay. Have fun, and I will see you the next time I'm making a video.